Listen carefully, stranger. What I'm about to tell you happened on a night when the moon turned black and the dead started remembering how to be alive. I'm at a town that wasn't on any maps, a town where every single resident died exactly 100 years ago, but none of them noticed. Pull closer to the fire. The desert gets cold at night, even for old bones like mine. It was 18 years into my curse, back when I still counted the days, still hoped that maybe, just maybe, there was an end to this. I was riding through a stretch of desert I'd never seen before, which was strange in itself. A century of wandering the same cursed canyons teaches you every rock, every cactus, every shadow. But that night, the desert looked different, felt different, like the land itself had shifted when I wasn't looking. That's when I saw the lights, town lights, warm and yellow, spilling from windows that shouldn't exist. I could hear music, tinny piano notes carried on the wind, laughter, the clatter of glasses in a saloon, the sounds of life, of people, of normalcy. I should have turned around. Nothing good ever came from curiosity. Not for me, not anymore. But it had been so long since I'd heard human voices that weren't screaming. So long since I'd seen lights that weren't funeral pyres or the cold gleam of cursed gold. So I rode toward the town. The sign at the edge read Harmony, population 243. The wood was weathered, but not rotted. The paint faded, but still readable. Houses lined the main street, 2 stories tall, with porches and rocking chairs and flower boxes in the windows. The saloon stood in the center, its doors swung open, music and light pouring out like water. Everything looked normal, lived in, real. But I'm dead, stranger, and the dead see things the living can't. And what I saw, underneath the warm lights and the laughter, was the truth. Every single person in that town was a corpse. Not like me. Not animated bones held together by curses and regret. These were bodies, real bodies, in various stages of decay. Some were fresher, their skin still mostly intact, their eyes still in their sockets. Others were dried husks, mummified by the desert heat. A few were little more than skeletons dressed in Sunday clothes. But they didn't know. They walked and talked and lived their lives as if their hearts still beat, as if their lungs still drew breath. A woman in a blue dress swept her porch, humming a tune, her face half gone to rot. A man tipped his hat to her as he passed, his smile showing far too many teeth because his lips had withered away. Children played in the street, their laughter like wind through hollow trees. I tied my horse, my skeletal companion, who understood this wrongness better than any living mount could, and I walked into that town of the oblivious dead. The first person I met was the sheriff. His badge was pinned to a chest that had caved in, his star sitting crooked over ribs I could see through the holes in his shirt. But he smiled at me, warm and welcoming, and extended a hand that had 3 fingers missing. "Evening, stranger," he said, his voice normal, human, completely at odds with what I was seeing. Name's Sheriff Wade. Don't believe I've seen you around Harmony before." I looked at him, at his dead eyes that somehow still saw, at his smile that should have been impossible. "No," I managed to say, my voice a dry rasp. "Just passing through." "Well, you picked a good night for it," he said cheerfully. "It's Saturday. Whole town comes out for Saturday. You should join us at the saloon. Have a drink. Meet folks. We're friendly here in Harmony." He clapped me on the shoulder, and I felt the cold of him, the absolute zero of true death. But he didn't seem to notice that I was nothing but bones, didn't seem to realize that we were two dead things having a conversation in a town full of corpses pretending to be alive. I followed him to the saloon because, God help me, I needed to understand. Inside, the place was packed. Men played cards at corner tables, their hands steady despite missing fingers, despite the fact that some of them had been dead so long their bones showed through. Women in fancy dresses danced with partners who moved with the stiffness of rigor mortis. The piano player, a thin man whose neck sat at an angle that would have killed a living person, played a jaunty tune. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was happy. Everyone was dead. "What'll it be, friend?" the bartender asked. Half his face was skull, the other half dried leather. But his voice was jovial, his manner friendly. "Whiskey," I said, because what else do you say to a dead bartender in a ghost town that doesn't know it's dead? He poured me a glass, the liquid sloshing amber and real. I picked it up with my bone fingers, and he didn't blink, didn't react. I realized then that they couldn't see what I was either. To them, I looked alive, whole, human. Whatever was happening in Harmony, it was powerful enough to fool even the dead. "You look troubled, mister," a voice said beside me. I turned to see a young woman, pretty once, before death had started its work. Her dress was clean, her hair pinned up neat, but I could see the gray pallor of her skin, the sunken quality of her eyes. "What is this place?" I asked her quietly. She laughed, a sound like bells, like normalcy. "This is Harmony, of course. Best little town in the territory. We've got everything a person could need. Good people, good land, good life." She paused, her smile never wavering. "Why? Looking to settle down?" "How long have you lived here?" I asked instead of answering. "Oh, my whole life," she said brightly. "Born and raised. Papa runs the general store. Mama teaches at the schoolhouse. I help them both. Been doing it for as long as I can remember." "And you've never left? Never thought about seeing what's beyond the desert?" Her smile faltered, just for a moment, and something flickered in her dead eyes. Confusion, fear. But then it was gone, replaced by that same cheerful certainty. Why would I leave? Everything I need is right here. Everything I love. I pressed further, something dark and curious driving me. When was the last time someone new came to town? Before me. She opened her mouth to answer, then stopped, her brow furrowed, her smile slipping. I I don't. That's a strange question, mister. We get travelers all the time, don't we? She looked around, as if seeking confirmation, and her voice rose slightly. Don't we? The piano music stuttered, just for a second. A few of the card players looked up, their expressions uncertain. The bartender's smile seemed frozen, painted on. Easy, I said, seeing something like panic starting to build in the room. Easy, just making conversation. The moment passed. The piano resumed its jaunty tune. The card game continued. The woman's smile returned, bright and empty. Of course we do, she said, but there was something hollow in her voice now. Of course. I spent the rest of the evening watching them, these dead people living their eternal Saturday night. I watched the same man tell the same joke 3 times to 3 different groups, each time acting like it was the first. I watched a couple dancing, who I realized had been dancing in the exact same circle, the exact same steps for the entire night. I watched children playing a game that never ended, never progressed, just looped back on itself. They were stuck, I realized, trapped in a single perfect moment, a single perfect night, repeating it over and over, unable to move forward, unable to realize they were caught. As midnight approached, I noticed something else. The bodies were getting fresher. The rot was reversing. The sheriff's missing fingers grew back. The piano player's neck straightened. The woman I'd spoken to looked more alive, more vibrant, her skin taking on color it hadn't had before. They were rewinding, I realized, going back to the moment before they died. And at midnight, the clock struck 12 and the town died. All at once, every person in that saloon collapsed. The music stopped. The laughter ceased. Bodies hit the floor like puppets with cut strings, and for one terrible, silent moment, I saw harmony for what it truly was. A mass grave dressed up as a town. They lay there, truly dead, truly gone, sprawled across tables and floors and each other. The smell hit me then, even though I had no nose to smell with. The overwhelming stench of death, of decay, of 243 people who had been gone for a very, very long time. I stood in that silent saloon, surrounded by corpses, and I waited. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 3, and then, like clockwork, like the turning of some cosmic key, they started to move again. The sheriff sat up, straightening his hat. The bartender stood, wiping down the counter. The woman in the blue dress smiled and smoothed her skirt. One by one, they rose, and the rot crept back into them, and they returned to their eternal Saturday night. "Evening, stranger," the sheriff said to me, as if for the first time. "Don't believe I've seen you around Harmony before." He didn't remember. None of them did. Every midnight they died. Every midnight they forgot. Every midnight they started again, trapped in a loop of false life and real death. I left the saloon and walked the streets of Harmony, seeing it with new eyes. I found the graveyard at the edge of town, but the graves were empty, the caskets open. I found the schoolhouse where books lay open to the same page they'd been on for a century. I found the church where the preacher's last sermon was written on a board, the chalk still fresh, though the hand that wrote it was dust. And I found the answer in the town hall, in a book left open on a desk. The ghost town continued. It was a journal. The last entry dated exactly 100 years ago to the day. The mayor's journal, written in a shaking hand. "The sickness came quick," it read. "Doc says it's cholera, brought in by those travelers last week. Already took the Johnson family, all 5 of them. The Mercers are sick too. By my count, half the town is showing symptoms. We've quarantined the healthy in the church, but I fear it's too late. The disease is everywhere, in the water, in the air, in the very dust we breathe. People are praying for salvation, for deliverance, for one more day, just one more day with their families, one more day in this town they built with their own hands, one more day of the life they love. I think someone's prayers are being answered, but not the way we hoped. The dead aren't staying dead. They're getting back up, going back to their lives, pretending nothing's wrong. But I can see it. God help me. I can see the sickness in them, the death. They smile at me with gray faces, and they say, "Beautiful day, isn't it, Mayor?" And I want to scream. I'm the last. I can feel the fever in me now, the sickness taking hold. By tonight, I'll be like them. But I have to write this down, have to leave a record. Someone has to know what happened to Harmony. We wanted one more day. We prayed for it. We begged for it. And something heard us. Something granted our wish. But it's not a blessing. It's a curse. We'll never leave. We'll never move on. We'll just keep living this one day, this one perfect Saturday before the sickness took us all, forever and ever and ever. God forgive us. We should have let go. The entry ended there. I closed the book slowly, carefully, and I looked out the window at the town of Harmony, at the people walking their loops, playing their games, living their eternal lie. They had prayed for one more day, and they got it, over and over and over. I should have left then, ridden out of that cursed town and never looked back. But something in that journal, something in the mayor's desperate words resonated with me. They were trapped, just like I was trapped. They couldn't move on, couldn't find peace, couldn't die properly. And maybe, just maybe, I could help them. The question was, should I? They were happy in their way. They didn't know they were dead. They didn't know they were repeating the same day in an endless loop. To them, every Saturday was new, every smile genuine, every moment real. Was ignorance really so terrible? Was living a lie worse than facing the truth of death? I thought about it as I walked those dead streets, I thought about my own curse, how I knew every agonizing moment of it, how I was aware of every year that passed, every night that I rode, every person I scared or hurt or turned into something like me. I was conscious of my damnation, awake for every second of it. Would it be better to be like them? To forget? To live in a dream, even if it was a lie? I didn't know. I still don't know. But I made a choice. I went back to the saloon, where the Saturday night revelry had started again. I went to the woman in the blue dress, the one whose smile had faltered when I asked about leaving. "Tell me your name," I said. "Elizabeth," she replied, smiling. "Elizabeth Carter." "Elizabeth, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I need you to really hear what I'm saying, and I need you to remember it, even when midnight comes." Her smile wavered. "That's a strange thing to say, mister." "I know, but try. Please try." I took a breath I didn't need and said the words that might doom her or save her. "You're dead, Elizabeth. Everyone in this town is dead. You all died 100 years ago from cholera, and you've been replaying the same night ever since. You're trapped." Her face went white, whiter than the death pallor already on it. No, that's not true. I'm alive. I'm right here. I can feel my heart beating. "Feel it," I said. "Really feel it. Stop pretending and feel." She put a hand to her chest, and her smile crumbled. Her hand trembled. I can't. There's nothing." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I'm so sorry. But you deserve to know the truth." The music stuttered again. The card games paused. One by one, the people in the saloon turned to look at us, their faces uncertain, their eternal loop disrupted. "What's he saying, Lizzie?" the bartender asked, his voice less jovial now, edged with something like fear. "He says we're dead," Elizabeth whispered. "He says we've been dead for 100 years. Silence fell over the saloon, and in that silence, I saw realization start to dawn. They looked at each other, really looked, and they began to see what I saw: the rot, the decay, the impossible nature of their existence. "No," someone said. "No, that can't be right. I remember yesterday. I remember last week. I remember..." "The same things," another voice interrupted. "We remember the same things, the same day, over and over." It was the piano player, his hands frozen over the keys. "I've played this same song every night for, God, how long?" The panic I'd glimpsed before came rushing back, but this time it didn't fade. This time it grew. People clutched at each other, at themselves, their faces showing the horror of understanding. "But I can't be dead," a man said, his voice breaking. "My wife, my children, they're waiting for me at home. They're dead," Elizabeth said softly, tears starting to stream down her gray cheeks. "They're dead too, aren't they? Everyone we love, everything we knew, it's all gone." The clock began to chime. Midnight was coming. "What happens now?" Elizabeth asked me, her eyes wide, terrified, but also, I thought, relieved. "What happens when we know?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But maybe knowing is the first step to being free." The 12th chime rang out, and the town died. But this time, it was different. This time, instead of simply collapsing into death, the bodies began to dissolve. They turned to dust, to ash, to memory. Their physical forms finally giving up the ghost they'd clung to for a century. I watched Elizabeth fade, her last expression not fear, but something like peace, like gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered as she disappeared. One by one, they all went. The sheriff, the bartender, the children in the street, the couples on the dance floor, all of them. Finally, truly, completely dead. Finally free. The town died with them. The buildings began to collapse, the wood rotting and fast forward, the paint peeling, the glass shattering. Harmony, sustained by the collective dream of its inhabitants, couldn't exist without them. I stood in the middle of the main street and watched 100 years of decay happen in minutes. The saloon fell in on itself. The houses crumbled. The church steeple toppled. By the time the sun rose, there was nothing left but ruins and dust, and me, a skeleton on a skeleton horse, watching the wind blow away the last traces of a town that had refused to die. I found a weathered sign in the rubble, the one that had read, "Harmony, population 243. The paint was almost gone, but I could still make out the words underneath. The original name of the town before the sickness came. Hope. It had been called Hope once. Before the disease, before the death, before the desperate prayers that trapped them all. I left the sign where it was and rode away as the sun climbed higher, back toward my own cursed canyon, my own eternal loop. But I thought about Elizabeth, about her tears and her relief, about the choice I'd given her. Was it cruel to shatter their peaceful delusion? Or was it mercy to offer them truth and an end? I still don't know, stranger. I truly don't. But I think about harmony sometimes. On quiet nights, when the moon is dark and the wind sounds like whispers. I think about those 243 souls who prayed for one more day and got trapped in it forever. I think about how I freed them with truth and how I'm still here, cursed with that same truth, unable to find my own freedom. And I wonder if ignorance really would be better, if living a lie, happy and unaware, is preferable to existing in full knowledge of your damnation. But then I look at this fire, at you sitting across from me, listening to my story, and I remember why I keep writing, keep existing, keep talking to strangers in the desert night. Because stories are truth, and truth, no matter how painful, is better than the prettiest lie. Even if that truth is that some of us don't get happy endings. Some of us don't get to rest. Some of us are just here, witnesses to the world's strangeness, trying to make sense of it all. That's what I learned in harmony. That's what I carry with me still. The fire's getting low now, stranger. You should add more wood if you plan to stay. The desert gets cold at night, and there are worse things than an old skeleton cowboy to keep you company. But if you ever find yourself riding through empty land, and you see lights where no lights should be, hear music where no music should play, if you find a town that feels too perfect, too happy, too alive, keep riding. Some places are meant to stay lost. Some stories are meant to end. And some of us, well, some of us are meant to remember, so that others don't have to. That's my curse, I suppose. Not just to exist, but to witness, to remember, to carry these tales forward into the endless night. So I ride on, stranger. I ride on. And harmony, the town that died twice, the place where 243 souls lived the same day for 100 years, where happiness was a trap and truth was freedom. Harmony is dust now, just dust and memory and wind, just like I'll be someday if I'm lucky, if I ever find someone brave enough to tell me the truth. The end.